Ooh boy, do we have a special edition of the PACC group ride today on June 20th, 2019. And this is PACC versus Dallas Bike Works. From down south in Dallas near White Rock Lake, little homage to Street Fighter and Chris Tolley and his videos. So, what happened today was the Dallas Bike Works boys, let's try saying that 10 times in a row fast, decided to come out on the Thursday edition of the Pop Ride. So usually those guys are doing the Fair Park Crit on Thursday nights, and this week there isn't a Thursday night crit because of some concert or some goings on, something or other, and so they changed it to Wednesday. So that meant they raced yesterday, and they must have gotten together and decided to join the PACC ride. I just call it the PACC ride. The Pop Ride today on Thursday. So that makes it pretty exciting for us because we have new blood, new people mixing it up, riders we haven't ridden with before, or certainly, most of the guys we had ridden with before, like, in one off or two off or something like that, but certainly not all of them together. So this made it a lot of fun. And, how do we stack up? So, of course, there are people from a lot of race teams that are on this ride, not just PACC, not just Dallas Bike Works, but as far as PACC, we have the greatest numbers. Yeah, fair to say that, typically on any given pop ride, because we live in the area. This ride goes through Plano. We're the Plano something athletic cycling club, something. I don't even know what PACC stands for. I'm in PACC and I don't even know what it stands for. But yeah. So the question is, will I actually be able to talk for like an hour? I think I will be able to, and that's kind of scary. I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I'll probably have something to say for the entire hour on a constant, non-stop drivel. Let's see, what was that? I should have turned off my phone volume there. So we're headed down the hill there. Now there are other topics besides just who's gonna bash in each other's skull on this race, but we'll get to those later. One thing I should comment on is that orb, that bright orb right in front of us there. So summer has finally come to Texas. It's been a weird year, very mild temperatures so far through most of the year. Freaking A. Let me turn off my volume on my phone there. So now it's off. Anyway, it's been a very mild year as far as temperature. This was the really first really hot pop ride. I guess last Tuesday was kind of hot too. My Garmin said 93 degrees Fahrenheit, which is something Celsius, who knows, like 37 degrees Celsius, who knows. But guys were saying, the heat index was 111 or 112. I don't even know what a heat index is. It just means a number that's higher than the real temperature, presumably due to humidity and other factors. So the heat index made it hot. I don't know who decided to make our kits black. We live in Texas, black kits. Black kits are actually very popular here in Texas, probably everywhere. But anyway, you could definitely feel the temperature, the sun beating down on our kits. I hope to not spoil the surprise, but we do have a summer kit coming that's going to be in white, and I ordered one, so eventually I'll be wearing a white kit, and white reflects sunlight. So we're pretty excited about reflecting sunlight. So there in front of me, 2 bikes in front of me, is Breen. Breen is a Cat 2. He's on Dallas Bike Works, and he's pretty dang fast. Breen was one of the top Cat 3s in the state last year, and he's one of the top Cat 2s in the state this year. And he, I assume, will have enough points to be a Cat 1 if he wants to next season, which is pretty impressive for a guy who's in his 30s and relatively new to the sport. I think he started racing 2 years ago. So he is pretty dang fit and fast. And in just a moment, you're going to see him fly the coop. Just fly away from us. There he goes. Boom. So, gosh, I wish I could have been on his wheel. I don't think I was particularly feeling it. We're motoring along at about 300 watts here in the draft. And Alvin, I don't know what that hand wave was. I think it was like, hey, somebody else come up here and do something. As I roll by, he says, you need to mark that. And I wasn't really wanting to roll away from the group. I didn't even know what was going on behind me. I'd prefer to have accelerated the group and had the group on my wheels rather than just going forward. And so when I finally got up here and realized that I had a gap, wasn't too excited about that because honestly I didn't really want to cover the rest of the gap. I just wanted to help pace the group. So gosh, it would have been interesting if I had tried to. Maybe I could have. Looking at my MPA there, maximal power available, it's theoretically possible, depending on how fast they go up ahead, but they're motoring pretty good. So a couple of the Dallas Bike Works guys up ahead. So, of course, this ride, it's not really a race ride. When I say that, what I mean by that is that it doesn't typically. A race ride requires that you have a defined finish line. This ride really doesn't have a defined finish line. It has some go zones and things. There's too many lights, too many stops. It can't be a race ride, and it's a hammerfest, yes, but not a race ride. Anyway, you can see there's some serious damage going on behind me with the Bikeworks guys off the front, with my little move off the front, with everyone else chasing me when I was, chasing. I don't think they were chasing me. They were just chasing in general, trying to get back on terms with the guys in front. And you can see there's serious damage, and people are getting dropped big time. Big gap behind Noe behind me and those guys. So we're coming up here on the right to Park Place pretty soon. We'll be taking that right, and we'll be hitting a light here in a second. But this brings up maybe the first off-topic, off-race, off-group ride question, which is, are you better off as a cyclist married or not married? So I was just having this debate recently, and without saying any names, and I've got to be very careful how I say this because I'm not referring to the person to whom people will think I'm referring to, my teammate. I was actually thinking about other people, so it doesn't apply to him. So the fact that I'm referring to him and saying it doesn't apply to him, you might suspect that that really means it applies to him, but I'm claiming that it doesn't apply to him, which is someone like doesn't have a girlfriend, then he gets a girlfriend, and suddenly you don't see him on the bike anymore, or he's not on the bike as much, or he's not as fast as he was. He's still on the bike, but he was a top racer, that kind of thing. We've seen this. Um, my friend said that in his other hobbies, he's seen it 100 times. He's had 100 friends that got married or got a girlfriend or whatever, and you never see them again. They're gone. They're like wiped off the face of the earth. It's like the rapture. The rapture is marriage. No kidding. However, there are some upsides to. Is this where? Is this where Francois peels off and takes the ride of shame, and he's flipping me off, and I'm telling him he's taking the ride of shame? I think so. Some guys take a shortcut here. So, having said that, what are the benefits of having a girlfriend or being married? So maybe the primary one is when you break your collarbone, you have someone to like drive you places, or like put your shirt on for you, or wipe your butt or something like that. I don't know. Luckily I haven't been in that situation yet. But anyway, having someone to kind of be around, there they are. There's Francois, and taking a little shortcut, saving his legs a little bit. But so also, like just kind of taking care of stuff around the house if that's possible. Part of the criticism of me is maybe I don't do enough housework, but in defense, how can I do housework when I'm riding my bike all the time? I'm too tired. I gotta save my legs. Can't be standing around the house and doing housework all the time. So, being a single dad would be, I think, really tough to be a cyclist. like impossible. I guess you could just do Zwift all the time. So kids, not so great for cycling career by yourself. I've noticed that a lot of cyclists are not married or don't have kids. So you'll see. It seems to me like there's a lot of guys who get back into cycling after their kids, after their kids are a little bit older. So they're kind of master's age and they get back into cycling. And, so I think there's benefits to being married, but there's this unsweet spot of being attached and then suddenly not cycling. And what am I doing here? I'm with Breen. What's going on behind me? We got a gap. Looks like we have a gap. So this is Breen moto pacing with Breen. He's got a really nice bike. It's really aero. Look at his position on the bike. It is very aero. He can just freaking cut through the wind. We actually have a really strong tailwind here. Um, he's just breakaway freaking specialist, and he is excellent at it, and he's proved it over and over. Um, so it's fun to have him on the ride and just ride behind this machine. Um, yeah. So I guess you can add your comment if you would like to chime in on whether you think having a significant other is a benefit to your cycling or a detriment to your cycling. In my case, I think it's definitely a benefit because there are, I think, a lot of things that my wife picks up in terms of, well, she literally picks up my kit off the floor, but she picks up other stuff. And look how terrible I take this turn. I'm just terrible. Anyway, um, yeah. So here we are, Park Place, where so many dreams have been destroyed. Um, so many dreams of not being dropped on Pop A have come to a bitter, bitter, bitter end on this road. Going into a little bit of headwind in this section, and I got Clint, the machine behind me. Clint did the Dirty Kanza this year, 200 miles. He is one of the very, very strong diesels on the pop ride in the local area here. And yeah, we got ourselves a little breakaway action going, which is nice, you know. Guys chasing behind us. Adam taking a quick look over his shoulder. Um, yeah, so always fun to be off the front here. So the other topic to discuss, besides being married, is structured workouts during the nice part of the year where you can ride outside, where the weather is good, where you don't have to be on the trainer if you don't want to be, where you could be racing crits all the time, you can be doing group rides. Should you be doing structured rides? Now, there's a great Instagram account that probably all of you are familiar with. If you are not familiar with it, shame. Shame, shame on you, which is called Cat3 Memes. And it's really funny. It's memes making fun of cyclists and what we do and all this stuff. And so I think one of them recently had something about where you reach the top peak of your form at the in the spring as you've been doing all these structured workouts all winter, and then you get to, as soon as the season, the weather is good, you completely abandon all your training plans and you just ride outside and have fun. You don't do any of the other crap, and you're not doing your freaking Siler 8 minute times 4 intervals. You're not doing your VO2 max intervals. You're not on trainer road. You're not using your exert structured workout. You're not popping on Zwift to do some kind of bullcrap workout that they have in their menu. I guess, so this is what it gets to, these guys that actually pay for coaches, you can't just suddenly stop, like doing what your coach says, or your coach may actually fire you. I suppose, coaches that want to collect their paycheck And I guess you could ignore them and they'd still collect the paycheck, and wouldn't be much point to having a coach. But should you be continuing to do these structured workouts the whole year as you prepare for some A event? What I've noticed is I think the really strong guys, they do that. They are disciplined. They still do workouts in the months where the weather is good. Um, but the question is, should one live one's life that way? Now, this is a very deep philosophical question that we're each going to have to ponder, probably for hours after you've listened to this. If you find yourself staring at the ceiling, unable to keep your racing mind from going over and over about your lack of discipline, your lack of hard training, you're freaking pulling on the front for 1 minute, taking a hero pull and calling that your workout for the week. Is that really getting you to the place you want to be? What is that place that you want to be? Um, that's a good question to consider. And I know it sounds weird, but you can actually get to a place where you like the suffering on a trainer. Um, there are people that are like that, and what a blessing it is to be like that, because you are destined to have very good fitness if that is your passion and your love. Just discipline. Of course, you have to do it right. You can't just burn yourself out in terms of overworking yourself, overstressing yourself. But if you have the discipline to do that, money to you. On the other hand, for some of us, it would bore us to tears. It would be oppressive. It would be like living in the gulag, breaking rocks 1 minute and hopping on the trainer the next minute. It would not be fun. And imagine that there's some bloke right at this minute, could be on this ride, this epic showdown between PACC and Dallas Bike Works. But instead, you're on the trainer doing some workout. So we have Sam up here, Windsor. It makes me think about how this ride has changed over time. It wasn't that long ago that I'd done the Pape for the first time. When was that? Was it like, I guess it would be coming up on 3 years ago. I think would be perhaps the first time I did Pop A. We're coming, I think it's my anniversary might be in 3 year anniversary might be in like 2 months or something like that. And I just think about the turnover in the ride and guys that used to be there, the you know the real power horses of the ride, and some of them aren't here anymore. They're not riding anymore. A couple of cases I'm thinking about, it has nothing to do with getting married. You were probably suspecting that, or having a girlfriend. But other life challenges and other things have come into play, moving away and things like that. So, kind of, I think about my own evolution on the bike to go from just being, the recreational rider who's kind of strong on the B ride to trying the A ride, to now, kind of being in the upper half of the A rides in terms of, whatever you want to call it. So, um, big change for me over almost 3 years in doing this ride. Probably, I don't know how many times now. Have I done it like 120 times, something like that? Probably more than that. Tried to use Strava to count this up a while back, and I want to say it was close to 100 quite some time ago. So, um, and here we are going into a headwind on Allen Heights. This road happening to be, I think, the most dangerous part of the ride because we have opposing traffic coming from the other direction. There goes Alvin on Pursuit of Glory off the front of the ride. And um, yeah. So why it's dangerous is because just before we have this section, after we go through that traffic light, there's this area where the road bottlenecks goes down to just these two lanes, and there's also this convenience store that people turn into, and you get these sudden braking that occurs, and you get these people that want to pass us very quickly before the road bottlenecks down. And so, gosh, I hope nothing bad ever happens, but I'm worried, that would be, there's been a few close calls related to cars in that section. So, this isn't a race ride. If this was a race ride, we might not be chasing this because we have a guy up there. So, I wish in some ways it was more of a race ride, but this is a ride where you can chase down your teammates and it's perfectly appropriate and nobody is upset and you're just here to go fast and get a workout. Um, so, I think each of us has to decide what our goals are and how fast and fit we want to be and how that fits into our lifestyle of riding. And for me, the socialization part is important. I think these are my friends that I'm now riding with, not just the guys on my team, but all the other guys too. And seeing them out on rides and being with them is makes me feel good and I enjoy it, and I would hate to give that up just so that I could increase my FTP by 3% or something. Um, what do I need to really achieve to make myself feel good? Well, that's a question each of us has to answer. And here's me just noodling on the front, not closing the gap, just inviting somebody else to do the work that I am too lazy to do. Um, well, look at that. Alvin's doing the work that I was too lazy to do. Let me hop on his wheel. No, let me not hop on his wheel. Let somebody else hop on his wheel. let me just let me just stay in the wind, riding real slow. And yeah, and let me get some footage of everyone passing me. I think that would be great. So yeah, this was on purpose. Everyone passing me with footage of everyone. But yeah, I am glad actually to get footage of almost everyone. Everyone who's left. I guess we have a lot of people left, but I think some people got toasted there uh, as we were going north. So I've said this again. I've said this before. I can say it again. You're at your greatest danger when there is a tailwind of getting dropped because everyone is having to do about the equivalent amount of work to go a given speed. If you have a headwind, you are able to shelter and you are potentially able to use much less power to go the same speed because the person in the very front is blocking that wind, is cutting through the wind. So your watts may be 30% lower, 40% lower, but with a strong tailwind, you're not getting that same benefit of being in the draft. So that's why people were getting gapped and dropped on there. So great anticipation at this point. We're hitting legendary Parker Road. This is the last great frontier of cycling in the northern part of the DFW area for crosswinds. So what do you need to get a good crosswind? Well, up here you need an east-west road. Secondly, you need open space next to that road so the wind can actually reach the road level. If all it is houses and trees and fences and all the other kind of bullcrap we have in these suburbs, well, it's going to do a lot to block the wind. So for example, Renner Road, the last road we take, is also east-west, but we really don't get the same crosswinds as we do on this road because there are houses and big brick privacy fences that are right next to the road, and they do a lot to block the wind. But this is an open area of fields. Now I can imagine in probably a year, 2 years, 3 years, this will be further developed, and the fields that once were will be tract homes on zero lot homes. No yards. Like this is not going to be just a mowed field forever. And yeah, so you can see The wind is coming from the right to the left. I would be better off being on the further left. I'm not getting a whole lot of draft here. Being directly behind Eddie, I guess this is Eddie, my teammate in front of me, is a little bit right now like being guttered because I'm not in echelon formation. I'm not getting any of that lateral benefit, and here I'm not getting really any benefit. So I am essentially riding in the wind at this point. So I see some guys moving up to form a second echelon, and that's my cue to move up and get a break from the wind up here. So I don't know what the forecast for the wind was, but gosh, it might have been 15 miles an hour or something coming from the south, so from our right to our left, blowing across the screen. And if this was more of a race ride, you might have a situation where the people in the front are hugging the left-hand side, which means that there's no shelter, and they're essentially guttering the group. But of course they're not. They are providing maximum shelter for us by the riders in the front riding on the right side. So in an ideal situation, you'll have a pace line where there is a echelon that's moving forward and there's an echelon that's moving backwards, and it's rotating kind of in a diagonal fashion, and there could be a further echelon behind that. Luckily my teammate here says, hey, jump in, so I'm getting a lot more shelter suddenly now than I was previously getting. So I didn't look at my watts up there, but I imagine if you were to rewind this, you would see that in general my watts right now are going to be lower than they were previously for the minute previous to this. Just a little drink of water to slake my thirst as I'm recovering from this 112 heat index ride. So up here we have, what is this thing called? It's something ranch. I'm just totally blanking. Really famous, like the movie or the TV show Dallas. Did anybody watch that when they were younger? You had to have been younger. So this is an opportunity to South Lake. We're going to be passing South Lake. That's part of the pop ride, South Lake Ranch. Is that what it's called? South Fork. Sorry. Why am I saying South Lake? South Fork Ranch. Not South Spoon. South Fork. Something to do with something. I don't even know what it's about. People can take tours, something. I don't know. We're going to be taking a right on Murphy in just a second. So at this point, there is nobody off the front to break away. It's really hard to break away on this ride unless you get cooperation from lights, and that doesn't really count to get through a light first and have a breakaway. And my own personal feeling is, do you really want to do the ride alone on these busy roads just by yourself because you went through a light first? I'd rather ride with at least a couple of guys. Of course, I don't have the luxury of doing that because I'm not fast enough to do that anyway. I'm not usually off the front anyway. What? We do have guys off the front. What's up? I forgot. There were guys off the front. Sorry about that, guys off the front. You now get credit for being off the front. So, got my teammate Eric here, and gosh, why do we have a gap? Were we going that hard? Now my job is to kind of, look, my glove now comes in appearance. So, when it's 112 heat index day, that's the time to bring out the full fingered gloves for maximum temperature control. So, yeah, me and Eric, we go up here, we're just, noodling around in just a little bit here. Strong headwind at this point. And you can see I went from 300 watts to 128 watts just by being in Eric's draft. You can see the flag there next to South Fork, which that's how hard the wind is blowing. God bless the American flag. God bless the Texas flag. We love the Texas flag. We fly the Texas flag at the same height as the American flag because the Republic of Texas, we were once a country. We were once our own freaking country, and we're proud of it. We're Texans. We love Texas, and we love our flag, and we love to cycle near the South Fork Ranch. So there's Breen again, and a teammate on his wheel. That looks like John. Um, and, I think it occurred to me to let these two guys just roll off the front, but I stayed on the wheels here. Um, I don't know what that would have accomplished. Um, it's a group ride, you know. Just freaking stay on the wheels and take a pull if you can once in a while, and so forth. So, you may have seen videos in the past where we're like just flying through this section, going like 32 miles an hour or whatever, but it's not that fast this time. 24 and a half miles an hour into a very strong headwind is pretty fast. So I'm in Breen Strath as much as I can, and I'm still in like, mid 250s kind of power zone. And in passing him, now you can see that it's like going up to 350 or 330 or whatever like that. So at least for a moment. And I kind of let this rotation go, and we'll guys that were kind of had been gapped before are now back on, and we'll go through a pace line, a bit of a pace line anyway, and pretty typical for Pop A for us in a very strong headwind to do some kind of pace line. Gosh, looks like the group is a lot smaller and gapped and everything here. So while I said that it's easy to get dropped with a tailwind, if you let a gap open, it's really easy to get dropped on with a headwind. You never should let the gap open, because if you can't stay on the wheels when you have like a 40-30% benefit, you're sure not going to accelerate and catch back on, and by going faster than everyone, putting out 100% effort into the wind. And here we go again. Can't we just all stay together and be like one beautiful group of cyclists, all cutting through the wind, taking turns, not letting gaps open, not punishing our fellow friends, not, hurting each other. Just kidding. We like to hurt each other. We really enjoy hurting each other. And towards the end, as we get closer to FM44, some of these guys like to sprint. Calling you out, Alvin. Alvin likes to sprint because it's almost always a red light there. And I don't know, for me, 160 beats per minute heart rate, that's lactic acid for me. That's big time lactic acid. It is not pleasant. There's a contrast here. My MPA is not that low, 1200, 1250, that range, which indicates I have a pretty good amount of power in the tank, but my heart rate is not low for me. I have a relatively low heart rate compared to others. So maybe the heat is playing a significant role in elevating my heart rate and my perceived exertion at this point in the ride. Did I mention the 112 degree heat index? But yeah, so legendary Murphy Road. It's a lot of fun to ride on this road. No potholes, no cracks, don't need to call anything out. It's like a highway, especially when you get the tailwind. There's nothing that beats a super fast bunch of dudes and women, because we do get plenty of women, some women on Pop A. And gosh, look at me, I'm taking a pull. What the heck is going on? Taking a 250-watt pull. So I'm not exactly railing it through here, but I'm not exactly feeling so hot either. Let's see, we hit a yellow light. Did some guys get gapped because of the light, or did the whole group make it? Fascinating how the whole group sometimes makes it. So there's those brick fences I was talking about that are on Renner Road and block the wind, but of course here they are parallel to the wind rather than blocking the wind. There goes Alex. I've mentioned him in previous videos. There's Clint, our Dirty Kanza guy. There's Herb, who Shout out to Herb. I don't know what happened to Herb, but man, he seems to have gotten a ton stronger. Really cool to see guys that do the work and do whatever it is they do, and they come and they're blowing it out of the water. That's fun to see. It's fun to see people progress and get stronger and better, and whether they're young, whether they're old, whether they were once fast or never fast. That's part of the fun of progressing in cycling, and I like to see that. And I like to see new blood, new faces. It's a little bit, have you played pickup basketball where you play the same freaking dudes every single week? There goes Alvin. There goes his little sprint zone. And um, you play the same guys every week, and you know every single facet of their game. You know how their left hand works. You know how they like to shoot, where they like to go on the floor, what their range is, how they play defense, every single characteristic. I mean, that has its attraction. So your chess is different when you know exactly the style of the person you're playing. I'm pretending like I know how to play chess here. Um, but when you have new people involved playing basketball, you've got to figure out everything. It's like adjust and react. And so that's what makes it fun to ride with people you don't know, and to have people you don't know kind of join the mix in the ride that you are. Or even if they're people that you do know individually, what if they're all together and they're kind of working together? That's going to definitely change the mix. What would be a lot of fun is if these DBW guys, Dallas Bike Works team, racing team, came and did the wattage ride up north. They do the South Ride because they all live near the South Ride. It'd be a lot of fun if they came up and did the wattage ride up north. And we could use a formal team tactics with a real race ride. And when I say real race ride, meaning no lights and a finish line. Um, so you're probably saying, when's the freaking action going to come? You build this as a freaking PACC versus Dallas Bike Works. What's going to happen? Well, it's about to happen. It's about to go down. It is about to freaking go down. And we are coming up on a right-hand turn, so we have a headwind right now, and we're going to be going into a bit of a crosswind, but like I said, it's a bit sheltered compared to Parker Road that we were previously on. And this is me waving the white flag saying, I'm just going to stay in a draft here. I'm not going to accelerate. I'm not going to stay on wheels of the guys going to the front. Why? Why? Now you're answering that question for me right now, and I'm not liking what I'm hearing. It is not flattering. Zip it. So there goes Breen. Why am I not going with him? Well, maybe because I don't have the legs. Let's see, what does my MPA say? 1335. Yeah, kind of eating away. That is contradicting my assertion that I don't have any legs at the moment. So boom, look, Breen goes. There are guys going up the front, and Breen is going to follow, and now we are getting gapped. Big gap already, and we're noodling here in the back. But some of this stuff will come back together. I promise you. I promise you. I am in the future. See these guys on the screen? They are in the present. I am in the future. I know things that these guys do not know. Now, it's a curse to know the future. Trust me. It is a curse. All right. We are making our right-hand turn. You can, again, see how I'm really bad at turns. Why am I gapped like that? I suck. I'm terrible at turns. Anyway, we are back on in terms of me being on, me and the viewer. However, there are guys off the front. So what had happened was Breen ends up off the front with two of my teammates, and I think Breen may have had a teammate with him as well. I'm not sure. Two of my teammates, John and Alvin, were with him, with Breen. So that's a good move for us, right? We've got two of our very strongest racers with arguably DBW's strongest racer. and or maybe plus one other racer. I'm not sure if another DBW guy was up there, but you know, 2 plus 2s, that's pretty good. 2 and 1, that's even better. However, 2 and 1 and the one dropping the 2 is not as good. Not as good. That's not what we wanted. So, we're coming to this light, the end of the segment called Summer Special. Is this the summer solstice? I thought it was later. Somebody was saying it's summer solstice today. So maybe this is the longest day of the year in which we can all feel depressed that we're going to get shorter days and our cycling time is disappearing every single day after the summer solstice. We don't need to dwell on that. Let's think of the positive. Let's think of the beautiful hours we're going to have outside still going into the fall. And of course, we never stop riding. We don't care if it's 30 degrees and it's Fahrenheit and it's dark and cold. Pop ride goes on. Pop ride goes on all year. So, did we pass Alvin yet? So Alvin, not quite yet, I think. Anyway, Alvin told me that he got dropped from the breakaway because he decided to let John go with Breen. So John being our teammate. So, sorry, I know my voice sounded skeptical there. I didn't mean to sound skeptical. I completely believe that that was his decision. I do not think it was the right decision. He should have stayed on if he had the ability to do so, because 2v1 is a lot better than 1v1. Let's see, who's that on the left? There's John. That's not a good sign. John falling behind us when he was in the breakaway with Breen. So there's my teammate Lynn. He was pulling on the front, doing some work to try to accelerate the group, and now taking a rest as he goes backwards to latch on to the back. I am trying to get as much of a wind break here as I can by riding to the right side of the road. So basically, I'm in the gutter, and I'm yelling at the guys in the front to get to the left, but Eddie interpreted that as him going to the left, which is fine. Then I told Eddie, I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to these guys that are riding in the gutter and guttering the group. They should be to the left, but they weren't. And here's Herb. He's going to motor up here and power up this hill. I mean, I don't know how much Herb weighs, but I don't think he's the lightest guy here. And man, look at him powering up here, just gapping everyone behind him. Pretty impressive. Impressive by Herb. This guy's got some real form going, I think, compared to, say, last year. So that's pretty awesome. So it looks like at this point, Breen is off the front by himself. Now, I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say that Breen is the strongest guy on this ride. And if he gets a gap, he's going to keep that gap, and we aren't ever going to see him again. So now the question is, will we see him again? Will the lights cooperate in our favor? So can you really have a race ride where you depend on the lights cooperating in your favor? I would argue not. So I've actually talked to my contacts in the city about timing these lights specifically for the pop ride, and what I would propose is changing the interval for the average speed of the ride at a specific window of time, the average time that we go through these lights on the pop ride, which is variable because of the other lights that occur earlier in the ride and how fast we go and who's on the ride. So it'd have to be a bit of a window, like maybe a 10-minute window for each light. So it completely disadvantaged the cars in terms of their timing, but who cares about the freaking cars? We've got a race ride that we want to do, and if we could have all green lights on Renner Road, we would have a real race ride. And so I talked to my contact in the city, and he pointed me to one of the traffic engineers, and my contact actually talked to the traffic engineer. And here's the sad thing. Apparently someone multiple people have already asked him that or something very similar to that. So it's not even an original idea. How pitiful is that? And of course it hasn't happened. So I didn't make a formal proposal to that guy. When I heard that, I was like, forget it. It's never going to happen. But wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if all these lights were timed specifically for this non-sanctioned group ride? When I say non-sanctioned, there are some group rides in the area that are part of a local, like, official bike riding club, not a race team, but and they have like ride leaders and stuff like that, and rules and stuff. Um, yeah, I hate hitting this light red. This We don't like to hit this light red. We like to hit this light green. It usually is green, and so, gosh, if Green hit this light green and we didn't, we're definitely not going to catch him. And I think at this point we could not see him. He was not visible. He was not a speck in the distance as far as I could tell. Um, but yeah, it'd be really cool if we could make this into a real race ride. A little bit more water here. Um, what we should really be doing is chasing. So I guess that is what we're doing. And a little bit of a fast start out of the light there. There goes James, a little bit backwards there. Oh yeah, his chain came off. So when his chain came off, it was like a freaking huge gap, and maybe I should have hammered here. I guess I didn't feel like it, but my teammate Kimmeth off the front and let him go, and I'll just stay on the front as long as people want me to stay on the front going at this particular speed. And when they want to pass me, they will pass me, and I'm riding all the way to the left to not gutter the group. In other words, to create the largest echelon possible, which is what we would want to do if we're chasing somebody up ahead. We'd want to work together, and we'd be sharing pulls, and there would be someone coming around me and accelerating the group, or at least keeping the pace up. But you can tell probably everyone's tired because nobody is coming around me, and I'm not even going that hard. Going below threshold, and just shows you how hard the ride in the heat was. That I think mentally, either physically guys couldn't, or mentally they checked out at this point. But it ain't over till it's over. By the way, setting up this whole like PACC versus Dallas Bike Works, it's just a friendly thing. It's not like a real rivalry. Although if they wanted a real rivalry and they came out to this ride a lot, that would be great. That'd be awesome. I'd love that. Friendly rivalry, of course. Not like personally upset, screaming at each other, locking bars, sticking pumps into people's wheels kind of rivalry, but friendly rivalry. And when we had other more like a bigger representation from some other teams, I think that made it more fun. And so yeah, it'd be great if they were able to fit this in their schedule, but it doesn't really work out for the crit season because they do their crits on Thursdays and we do our crits on Tuesdays, and the ride is a Tuesday-Thursday ride, so we wouldn't always be on the ride at the same time, even if we were doing it when we could do it. But maybe they'll be here next week because, as I understand it, the Thursday night crit has decided to do the Wednesday night thing. So maybe they'll come out. That would be fun. George Bush Tollway. Yeah, I was like, maybe the cop pulled over Breen because he was going too fast. No, just like a Prius or something. We can always dream. So, what's gonna happen here? We're like fighting for second place. Are we gonna catch Breen? Have we given up on that? Just going through a yellow here. One thing that's pretty cool about Dallas Bike Works is they have their own kit, where that it says Dallas Bike Jerks, and the kit right behind me is a Dallas Bike Jerks kit. So I don't know who came up with Dallas Bike Jerks, but the best thing you can do if someone tries to insult you is completely own the insult and love it and use it, and then it doesn't really mean anything, or, so kudos to them for having a great sense of humor about things. That's one thing that's pretty cool about bikes and cycling culture and racing, is that for the most part, at least at this level of racing, I don't know what it's like for like pros and super competitive people who are depending on their results to feed their girlfriends. Or is it the opposite? Does the really rich girlfriend or rich wife ruin cyclists more than, say, the equally yoked financially wife slash girlfriend, or the one that makes less money or doesn't work? Good question. We'll have to ponder that one. The dynamics of, male, female plus cycling. I feel like I'm getting into some dangerous territory here. I feel like I'm stepping into a dark hole where, I'm like stepping in a dark hole with a knife, like a knife fight with like a blind Shaolin monk who's been in this hole his whole life training, and it's not going to turn out good for me. So I'm just going to like shut down that part of the conversation right now. Here we are on Renner Road. So when you don't really have a race ride, you may have more than one finish line, and I think I kind of consider a little bit like getting to the Whole Foods here in just a second. We have a little bit of a false flat here as a bit of a kind of finish line, even though it's not the official finish line. So it's nice to, and this is where last week Herb, and that's the guy right in front of me. Look at the freaking size of his, of his quads. That man is all muscle. So so we're just cresting this little false flat, and now we're going a little bit downhill, and up on the right that's the City Line complex, where you have the national headquarters for State Farm and Whole Foods, and so we're going to maybe motor here a little bit, and even if you consider Whole Foods a finish line, there's not actually a finish line. There's not like a sign or a designated line or something like that. But it's nice to put in that was pretty weak sprint. Oh well, you do what you can. What was my peak power? I'm not even sure. Who cares? So, this is Whole Foods, which incidentally is a sponsor of PACC. At least this particular Whole Foods is. So, shout out to our sponsor, Whole Foods. Thank you for supporting cycling and doing everything that you do to make food good and everything else you do. So at this point, I don't know if we'd seen Breen or not, but he wasn't really in mind if we did see him. He was a spec, and he later commented after the ride that at one of these lights he saw that we were approaching and it was getting kind of close, and I think that wasn't a matter really of us chasing him down per se, but more a function of what lights you make and what lights you don't and how long they take and so forth. Or maybe, I don't know, when we're going hard, it's like any group, it's if they're working together, it's hard to stay away unless you're just really strong. So we're gonna have another finish line up here, which is the official finish line, except half the riders, not half the riders, but many of the riders actually peel off here to return to the other side of town, so they don't go all the way to the end to the Tom Thumb. So does it really count as a finish line if half the riders have already quit riding before you get to the finish line? Sort of like best of the rest? Does that really count? We can argue about that. For me, it counts, because I go to the finish line, the real finish line. Although sometimes I'm too gassed to do anything by that point, if you've already pursued other finish lines. So, look at the sun. Well, don't look directly at the sun, but it's safe to look at the sun in this video. because it won't burn your retina out. If you feel it burning out your retina, I'm not responsible for that. So just turn your gaze slightly to the left. A little bit to the left. You can put on some sunglasses as well. And here we are. Let's see. Dallas Bike Works guy is moving up. There's Clint right in front of me. Good wheel to be on. He's gonna motor to the front here. A lot of development in this area. So this part of Richardson has been growing. If you're not familiar with the Dallas area, Richardson is the first suburb north. Is that accurate? Is Addison? Anyway, it's one of the suburbs, one of the first suburbs north of Dallas. And north of Richardson, you have Plano, and then you've got a whole bunch of other crap north of there, like Allen, McKinney, Frisco, all these other cities. So most of the growth in the Dallas area has been to the north. And, you know, at this point, living in Richardson may feel like living in the central part of the city, even though it's 20 miles from this point here to downtown Dallas, headed south. We're going under 75, Interstate 75, and headed to the final finish on Renner Road, to the Tom Thumb where a lot of the riders park their cars. And we have a bit of a crosswind, of course, the wind coming from the left to the right, and a little bit of an incline here, but usually we have to stop at this light. So many frustrated attacks have gone here but never ended up doing anything because they hit a red light. But such is life. And as soon as I say that, of course, on this ride we don't hit it red, it's green. And let's see, is that Philip? Philip makes some kind of attack. My resolution as I'm looking at this rendered version of the video is not particularly good, so I can't make out any colors related to these cyclists. But I think maybe Philip attacks later. What's going on here? I think that's Alvin. And yeah, I think that's Alvin. And a Dallas Bike Works rider. I'm using my memory at this point, but yeah, that is correct. I think Philip's already gone off the front at this point. When does he attack? He attacks soon, or maybe that's Breen way up there. Yeah, I think that's Breen up there, and I think Philip's about to attack. So this is the real finish line coming up, and I think my thought at this point was just, I'll stay in the front as long as nobody passes me or whatever, and then I'll slowly accelerate, but not really intending to put in a actual sprint. Why would I not intend to put in an actual sprint in the sprint zone when I want to practice sprints? Does that make any sense? That's the thing about cycling. You do things that don't make any sense. So this is a nice little go by Clint. He's our Diesel Dirty Kanza rider. And so in a race scenario, he's not particularly wanting it to come down to a final sprint, but he would prefer to make an early attack. That long kind of, you're going to have to match my pace for a long period of time kind of attack. But he's putting in an effort, getting a bit of a workout as he does so. Extra water bottle there in his pocket. And I have not closed this gap. I need to close this gap. I should close this gap. Now I've closed the gap. And we're coming up here to the very finish. And this sign right there on the right is the finish line. So thank God Alvin passed me there. Who knows what could have happened if that hadn't occurred. Stole the purse right out of my hand. So Philip, I guess he had made the earlier attack, and so Philip was finished before all of us, and Breen was ahead of Philip, of course, with the being solo essentially the entire time on Renner, and Alvin gets our official third place. So, Dallas Bike Works versus PACC. Dallas Bike Works won today. Let's see what happens in the rematch. Later, like and subscribe if you want to. Bye.